My own son stood in my living room and told his college friends that I was nothing but a burden he couldn't wait to be rid of. I'm Vincent Carter, 72 years old, and I spent 45 years building something my son never bothered to ask about. He was already spending his inheritance money in his mind, showing his friends the lakefront estate he planned to sell the day I died, laughing about finally being free of the old man who cramped his style.
Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you.
What he didn't know was that $6 million he'd been counting on was about to disappear. And by the time he realized what happened, it would already be in the hands of people who actually needed it. I didn't yell. I didn't lecture. I just made one phone call to my attorney and another to the director of St. Catherine's Children's Hospital. If you're watching this, please subscribe and let me know where you're watching from, because this story is about the difference between assuming you deserve something and actually earning it. That lesson was about to cost my son everything he thought was his. Most people who meet me see exactly what my son Derek sees. A 72-year-old man who lives in a modest 3-bedroom ranch house in suburban Ohio, drives a 2008 Honda Accord with a faded paint job, and wears the same rotation of Costco polo shirts I've had for a decade. Someone who clips coupons, shops the clearance rack at Kohl's, and considers Olive Garden a special occasion restaurant. Derek Carter, 34 years old, works in pharmaceutical sales, drives a leased BMW, and is absolutely convinced his father is a penny-pinching old man sitting on a small retirement nest egg that should rightfully be his the moment I'm gone. "Dad, you need to start thinking about downsizing," he told me 6 months ago during one of his increasingly rare visits. "This house is too much for you to maintain. You should move into a senior living community, something affordable." Affordable? As if I couldn't afford my own house, the house I'd paid off 20 years ago. When I asked him why he thought I needed to downsize, he just looked around my living room with its 15-year-old furniture and outdated carpet like the answer was obvious. "Because you're old, and you don't need all this space. Plus, when you sell, that money can help cover your care costs later. You don't want to be a burden on me financially." A burden? Financially? Those words stuck with me. The first real sign I was losing my son happened 8 months ago when he started bringing his friends around more often, not to visit me, but to show them the house. "This is going to be mine eventually," I heard him tell someone named Kyle in my own kitchen while I was supposedly napping in the bedroom. "It's on 2 acres, prime real estate. I can probably get $800K for the land alone." His friend asked what he'd do with the money. Derek laughed. "Pay off my debts, buy a real car, maybe that boat I've been looking at. My old man's been squatting on this property forever. He doesn't even appreciate what he has." Squatting on my own property. The second sign came when Derek started bringing his girlfriend, Amanda, around. She was nice enough at first, but I noticed how she'd walk through my house like she was already redecorating in her mind. "Derek," she said one afternoon while I was making sandwiches in the kitchen, "once this place is yours, we should gut the whole interior. Open concept, modern finishes. This old person aesthetic has to go." Derek agreed immediately. "Oh, absolutely. My dad has no sense of style. This whole place is stuck in 1985. I was standing 10 feet away. They knew I could hear them. They just didn't care. But the breaking point wasn't the comments about my house or my furniture or my car. It was what happened 5 weeks ago when Derek invited 8 of his friends over for a barbecue in my backyard without asking me. I came home from my weekly grocery run to find 9 people in their 30s drinking beer on my patio, music playing, Derek manning my grill like he owned the place. "Dad, hey," Derek said when he noticed me carrying grocery bags. "We're just having a little get-together. You don't mind, right?" Before I could answer, one of his friends, a guy in an expensive polo shirt, called out, "So you're the famous dad we keep hearing about. Derek talks about you all the time." I set down my groceries. "Does he? "Oh yeah," the guy continued, clearly already drunk. "Says you're a real character. Super frugal, totally set in his ways." Derek laughed nervously. "Dad's just from a different generation. They don't understand that you have to spend money to make money." Another friend chimed in. "Derek says you've been retired for like 15 years. What'd you do before that?" "I worked in manufacturing," I said. "Office job, nothing exciting." One of the women at the table exchanged a look with Amanda. "An office job for 40 years and this is all you have?" She gestured at my house, my yard, my modest 1,200 square foot ranch house. "I mean, no offense, but didn't your generation have it so much easier? Housing was cheap, college was affordable, jobs were everywhere." Derek jumped in. "Dad's just not good with money. Never has been. He could have invested better, bought property when it was cheap, but he played it safe. Kept everything in savings accounts and CDs. That's why he's still driving that beat-up Accord." I stood there holding my reusable grocery bags from Aldi, listening to my son tell me I was financially incompetent. "That's an interesting assessment," I said quietly. "Derek, maybe we should talk inside." "Dad, don't make this weird. We're just having a conversation." But the guy in the expensive polo shirt wasn't done. "So, Derek, what happens when, he passes? Do you inherit this place?" Derek nodded. "Yeah, the house, whatever's in his accounts, probably not a fortune, but it'll be something. Finally get to cash out on all those years of watching him pinch pennies." The table laughed. One guy raised his beer. "To inheritance, the great generational wealth transfer." Everyone clinked bottles, except me. I walked inside without another word, went to my bedroom, and closed the door. Through the window, I could hear them laughing, music playing, Derek holding court in my backyard like he was already the owner. That night, after everyone left, Derek came inside to clean up. He found me sitting in my recliner, the TV off, just sitting in the dark. "Dad, you okay? You kind of disappeared earlier." "I'm fine." "Look, sorry if the guys got a little rowdy. You know how it is. They've had a few beers, they start talking." "Derek, do you think I'm a burden?" "What? No, why would you ask that?" "Because I heard what you said. About me pinching pennies. About cashing out when I'm gone. About me not being good with money." Derek shifted uncomfortably. "Dad, I wasn't being serious. It was just guy talk. You weren't supposed to take it personally." "How else should I take it when my own son tells his friends I'm financially incompetent and he can't wait to inherit my house?" Derek's face hardened. "Okay, look, I'm 34 years old. I've got student loans, car payments, credit card debt. You're sitting on a house that's worth $750,000 and you live like you're broke. Can you blame me for being frustrated? Frustrated that I don't spend my money the way you want me to? Frustrated that I'm still alive and you're still waiting?" "That's not what I said. It's what you meant." Derek stood up. "You know what? I'm not doing this. You want to be offended, fine, but at some point you need to accept that I'm an adult with my own life and my own financial needs. This isn't the 1970s anymore. People my age are drowning in debt while the older generation sits on assets they don't even use." "And what would you like me to do about that?" "I don't know. Downsize. Give me an early inheritance. Help me out, something. Other than just existing in this house like a stubborn old man who won't admit he doesn't need all this anymore." I looked at my son, really looked at him, and realized I was staring at a stranger who saw me as nothing more than an obstacle between him and money he'd never earned. "Derek," I said quietly, "I think you should leave." "Fine. I'll talk to you when you're ready to be reasonable." He left. I sat in my recliner for another hour. Then I walked to my office, the small, spare bedroom Derek had never bothered to look inside, and opened the filing cabinet I'd kept locked for 30 years. Inside were documents Derek had never seen: stock portfolios, real estate holdings, trust documents, and a letter from Forbes magazine requesting an interview about my investment strategy. I spread everything across my desk and made a list. First call, my attorney, Jonathan Reeves, who'd been handling my affairs for 25 years. Second call, Dr. Patricia Morrison at St. Catherine's Children's Hospital. Third call, my financial advisor at Merrill Lynch. By midnight, the wheels were in motion. Derek had no idea what he'd just set in motion with his barbecue and his careless words.
Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story.
And his absolute certainty that he knew everything about his burden of a father.
The dinner invitation came from Derek 3 days later, a text message that read, "Dad, let's talk. Dinner at Marino's Italian, Thursday at 7. My treat." Marino's was the nicest restaurant in town, the kind of place Derek never took me unless he wanted something. I texted back a simple, "Okay," and spent the next 2 days watching my son's social media activity. He'd posted an Instagram story from a car dealership, standing next to a $95,000 Porsche Cayenne with the caption, "Soon." His friend Kyle commented, "Finally cashing in?" Derek replied with a winking emoji. Amanda posted a photo of a lakefront property listing with the caption, "Manifesting Our Future." The price tag was $1.2 million. My son wasn't just counting his inheritance anymore. He was already spending it. Thursday arrived, and I showed up at Marino's at exactly 7 o'clock, wearing my usual Costco polo shirt and khaki pants. Derek was already there, sitting at a corner table, wearing a suit that probably cost more than my entire wardrobe. He stood up when he saw me, smiling like nothing had happened. "Dad, thanks for coming." I sat down without hugging him. The waiter appeared immediately, clearly recognizing Derek as someone who tipped well or wanted to appear like someone who tipped well. Derek ordered an expensive bottle of wine without asking if I wanted any. He poured 2 glasses and raised his. "To family." I didn't pick up my glass. Derek set his down. "Okay, I deserved that. Look, I wanted to apologize for what happened last week. The barbecue, the things I said. I was drunk and stupid, and I wasn't thinking." "You seemed pretty clear-headed to me." "Dad, come on. I was showing off in front of my friends. You know how that is. Guys talk trash. It doesn't mean anything." "It meant something to me." Derek leaned forward, his voice dropping to that tone people use when they're trying to sound sincere, but aren't. "I know, and I'm sorry. Truly. I never meant to make you feel like a burden. You're my father. I love you. I just get frustrated sometimes because I worry about you." "Worry about me how?" "Well, you're getting older. You live alone. You don't spend money on yourself. I see you wearing the same clothes you've had for years, driving that old Honda, and I think, what if something happens? What if you need care and you don't have enough saved?" "I have enough saved." "Do you?" "Because from where I'm sitting, it doesn't look like it." The waiter returned to take our order. Derek ordered the most expensive steak on the menu. I ordered soup. Derek waited until the waiter left, then continued. "Dad, I've been thinking about our conversation, about what I said about early inheritance. Maybe that came out wrong. I'm not asking you to give me money. I'm asking you to think about your future. Senior living communities aren't cheap. Medical care isn't cheap. Long-term care insurance is expensive if you don't already have it. I'm just trying to protect you from ending up in some state-run facility because you didn't plan ahead." "I've planned ahead." "Have you? Because no offense, but a paid-off house and whatever you have in savings might not be enough. Do you even have a financial advisor?" "I do, actually." Derek looked surprised. "You do? Since when?" "Since 1985. He sat back. "Okay, well, that's good." "What firm?" "Merrill Lynch." Derek's eyebrows went up. "Merrill Lynch? That's a pretty serious firm for someone with a modest portfolio." "What makes you think my portfolio is modest?" Derek laughed. "Dad, I'm not trying to insult you, but you live in a 1,200-square-foot ranch house and drive a 16-year-old Honda. Your portfolio can't be that big." "Can it?" Derek's smile faded slightly. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying you've made a lot of assumptions about my financial situation based on how I choose to live." Our food arrived. Derek cut into his $60 steak while I ate my $8 soup. He was quiet for several minutes, and I could see him thinking, calculating, trying to figure out if he'd missed something. Finally, he spoke. "Dad, how much do you have saved?" "Enough." "That's not an answer." "It's the only answer you're getting." Derek set down his fork. "Okay, you're being weird. I'm trying to have a serious conversation about your future, and you're playing games." "I'm not playing games. I'm simply not discussing my finances with someone who called me a burden and told his friends he couldn't wait to cash out on my death." "I told you I was sorry for that." "You told me I was sorry I heard it." "There's a difference." Derek's face reddened. "Fine, you want to hold a grudge, hold a grudge. But don't come crying to me in 5 years when you can't afford your property taxes and you're losing the house." "I won't. Because I've already made arrangements." "What kind of arrangements?" "The kind that ensure I'll never be a burden to you, financially or otherwise." Derek stared at me. "What does that mean?" "It means I've updated my estate planning, made some changes to beneficiaries, made sure everything is documented properly." "You updated your estate planning? When?" "Recently." Derek's voice got tight. "And you didn't think to discuss this with me?" "Why would I? It's my estate, my money, my decisions." "But I'm your son. I'm your only child." "Exactly. You're my only child. And the way you've acted these past months have told me everything I need to know about what you do with an inheritance." Derek pushed his plate away. "Unbelievable. I try to be the bigger person here. I try to make things right, but you're just a stubborn old man who'd rather play mind games than accept help from his own son." He threw his napkin on the table. "Enjoy your soup, Dad. And enjoy living in that house alone with nobody to help you when you finally realize you can't do everything yourself anymore." He walked out, leaving me sitting there with half a bowl of soup and a $60 steak he'd ordered but barely touched. The waiter approached nervously. "Sir, will you be taking care of the check?" "I will." I pulled out my wallet and handed him my credit card. The black card from American Express that I had had for 20 years. The one that requires $250,000 annual spending to maintain. The waiter's eyes went wide when he saw it. Then he looked at me in my Costco polo shirt with complete confusion. "I'll be right back with your receipt, sir." While I waited, I pulled out my phone and opened the photos I had taken of the documents in my office. Stock portfolios showing $4.2 million in diversified holdings. Real estate documents for 3 rental properties in Columbus, generating $8,000 monthly income. The trust documents I had signed 2 days ago, redirecting my entire estate to St. Catherine's Children's Hospital. And the Forbes article from 2019 titled, "The Invisible Millionaires: How Blue-Collar Workers Built 7-Figure Portfolios." There was my photo on page 38, identified as Vincent C., retired manufacturing operations manager, net worth estimated at $6.3 million. The waiter returned with my card and receipt. His hands were actually shaking slightly. "Thank you for dining with us, Mr. Carter. Please come back anytime." I left a 30% tip and walked out to my 2008 Honda Accord. As I drove home, I thought about Derek sitting in his leased BMW, probably calling Amanda right now to complain about his stubborn father. What he didn't know was that his inheritance had already been transferred. Every penny of it was gone, signed over to children who actually needed it. And by the time he found out, it would be too late to do anything but learn the lesson I should have taught him 30 years ago.
The email arrived in Derek's inbox exactly 1 week after our dinner at Marino's. I knew because I'd asked my attorney, Jonathan Reeves, to send it at precisely 9 o'clock on a Monday morning, when Derek would be at his desk, caffeinated, checking his phone between sales calls. The subject line read, "Estate documentation for Vincent Carter. Action required." I wasn't there to see his face when he opened it, but I imagine the color drained pretty quickly when he started reading. The letter was professional, clinical, Exactly what you'd expect from a law firm that charges $600 an hour. It explained that I had executed significant changes to my estate plan, that all previous informal discussions about inheritance were now null and void, and that Derek should contact the office if he had questions about his updated status as beneficiary. Updated status as beneficiary. That phrase was doing a lot of heavy lifting. What the letter didn't say explicitly was that Derek's status had been updated from sole beneficiary to no beneficiary at all. That information would come later, in a separate document attached as a PDF. Jonathan had crafted it beautifully. Clinical, legal, absolutely airtight. The trust documents showed that my entire estate, valued at approximately $6.3 million in liquid and non-liquid assets, had been transferred to the St. Catherine's Children's Hospital Foundation. Every stock, every bond, every rental property, the house, the savings accounts, everything. The only exception was a $50,000 term life insurance policy that would cover my funeral expenses and leave Derek enough to pay for a nice headstone if he felt so inclined. My phone rang at 9:47 in the morning. Derek. I let it ring 4 times before answering. Hello? Dad, what the hell is this? What is what? I just got an email from some lawyer saying you changed your entire estate plan? You transferred everything to a children's hospital? Everything? I made some adjustments, yes. Some adjustments? Dad, this document says I'm getting nothing, basically nothing, just enough to bury you. That's not an adjustment, that's disinheritance. Derek's voice was climbing in pitch and volume. Is it? Because according to you, I was just a burden sitting on assets I don't use. I figured I'd put those assets somewhere they'd actually help people instead of funding a Porsche and a boat. How do you know about the Porsche? Instagram is public, Derek. You posted a photo at the dealership with the caption, "Soon." Your girlfriend posted a lakefront property listing with "Manifesting Our Future." Did you think I wouldn't see it? Silence on the other end. Then, that was aspirational posting. Everyone does that. Not everyone does it while waiting for their father to die so they can cash out. Dad, you're being insane. This is insane. You can't just give away $6 million to strangers because your feelings got hurt. I can do whatever I want with my money. And they're not strangers. They're sick children who need medical care their families can't afford. But I'm your son. You are. And you made it very clear that you see me as an obstacle between you and money you never earned. So I removed the obstacle. The money goes somewhere it's actually needed. Derek was breathing hard into the phone. I could hear him pacing. Okay, we can fix this. You obviously did this when you were upset. We can go back to the lawyer, undo it, say you weren't in the right state of mind. I was in a perfectly sound state of mind. I had a full cognitive assessment done the same day I signed the documents, scored in the 95th percentile for my age group. Jonathan insisted on it to make sure no one could challenge the transfer later. You planned this. You actually planned this? I planned to protect my assets from someone who sees them as his inheritance instead of my life's work. This is because of what you said at the barbecue. One stupid comment and you're punishing me for the rest of my life? It wasn't one comment, Derek. It was months of comments, years of attitude, decades of you assuming that because I don't spend money the way you think I should, I must not have any. You never once asked about my career, my investments, my plans. You just made assumptions and started spending money that was never yours. Derek's voice changed, got lower, more calculated. Dad, have you told anyone else about this? About what? About giving away $6 million to a hospital? Because that seems like something someone with dementia might do, someone who's not thinking clearly, someone who needs family intervention. There it is, the thread I'd been waiting for. Derek, I'm 72 years old, in excellent health, with perfect cognitive function. I have documentation from 3 separate doctors confirming my mental competency. I have witnesses to the signing. I have video recording of my attorney explaining every single document to me and me confirming I understood. If you try to challenge this on grounds of diminished capacity, you will lose, you will pay attorney fees, and you will embarrass yourself. But you'll still be dead broke because you gave everything away to spite me. Not to spite you, to teach you. There's a difference. Yeah, what's the difference? Spite would be burning the money. Teaching means putting it somewhere that demonstrates the values you never learned. Children dying of cancer deserve that money more than you deserve a portion of boat. Derek was quiet for a long moment. Then his voice came back cold, harder than I'd ever heard it. Fine, you want to play this game? I'm done. I'm done pretending to care about a father who clearly doesn't care about his own son. Don't call me, don't text me. As far as I'm concerned, you can rot in that house alone until you die and leave your fortune to whoever you want. I won't be at the funeral. Good luck finding someone to change your bedpan when you're 85 and can't take care of yourself anymore. He hung up. I sat in my recliner listening to the silence of my house and realized I felt lighter than I had in years. My phone buzzed with a text message 30 seconds later. Amanda, you're a selfish old man who doesn't deserve a son like Derek. I hope you're happy dying alone. I deleted it without responding. Over the next 3 days, I received 17 more messages from Derek. They started angry, moved to bargaining, touched on guilt tripping, and ended with threats of legal action. I heard you gave everything to charity. That's illegal. You can't disinherit your only child without cause. Call me back or I'm getting lawyers involved. I have grounds for a lawsuit. Undue influence, diminished capacity, something. You can't get away with this. Fine, keep the money, but don't expect me to take care of you when you're old and sick. See how those hospital kids help you then. Each message revealed more about who Derek really was. Not the polished pharmaceutical sales rep with the nice smile and the leased BMW. The real person underneath who saw relationships as transactions and family as a financial planning strategy. On day 4, Derek posted something on Facebook. I saw it because my neighbor, Phyllis, who still checks Facebook daily, called me to read it out loud. Sometimes you realize the people you thought would be there for you forever are actually toxic and holding you back. It's hard to accept when it's family, but sometimes you have to cut ties for your own mental health and growth, moving forward with people who actually support me. The comments were sympathetic. So proud of you for setting boundaries. Family isn't always blood. You deserve better. Derek had reframed the entire situation. In his version, I was the toxic parent he'd bravely cut off. He was the victim. Phyllis asked me if I wanted her to comment and set the record straight. I told her no. Let him have his narrative. The truth would come out eventually. It always does. That evening, I received an email from Dr. Patricia Morrison at St. Catherine's Children's Hospital. Mr. Carter, I wanted to reach out personally to thank you for your extraordinary generosity. Your contribution will fund our new pediatric oncology wing, provide 3 years of free treatment for families who can't afford care, and establish a permanent endowment for childhood cancer research. You're literally saving lives. We'd love to honor you at our annual gala next month. Perhaps say a few words about what inspired such a generous gift. I wrote back and declined the speaking invitation, but accepted their offer to attend. I asked if the donation could remain anonymous to the general public. Dr. Morrison responded within an hour. Of course, we'll refer to you only as an anonymous donor in all public materials. But privately, Mr. Carter, please know that 47 families will get to keep their children because of what you've done. That's your legacy. I printed the email and put it in the filing cabinet next to all the documents Derek had never bothered to look at. My legacy wasn't a son with a Porsche and a boat. It was 47 children who'd get to grow up. That night, I slept better than I had in months. Derek could call me selfish, toxic, whatever he wanted. I knew what I'd built. I knew what it was worth. And I knew exactly where it was going. Somewhere it mattered. Somewhere it would make a difference. Somewhere that wasn't my son's boat fund.
The gala invitation arrived in my mailbox 2 weeks later. Elegant cream cardstock with gold embossed lettering. St. Catherine's Children's Hospital Foundation Annual Benefit Gala. Black tie optional. Honoring those who make miracles possible. I RSVP'd yes for one guest and went to Macy's clearance rack to find a suit that didn't look like it came from a clearance rack. The woman helping me, probably in her 50s, asked what the occasion was. A hospital fundraiser, I told her. She found me a navy suit that fit well enough and only needed minor alterations. Total cost, $140. Derek would have spent 10 times that and still complained it wasn't designer. The night of the gala, I drove my Honda Accord to the Riverside Convention Center downtown, parked between a Tesla and a Mercedes, and walked inside, feeling like exactly what I was, a 72-year-old man in a discount suit who'd rather be home watching the Indians game. The ballroom was full of people who belonged there, doctors in expensive tuxedos, donors in designer gowns, hospital board members who flew in from New York and Chicago for events like this. I found my table, number 23, near the back, close enough to see the stage, far enough away that no one would notice me. The woman sitting next to me introduced herself as Helen, a retired nurse who'd worked at St. Catherine's for 30 years. Her husband had passed 2 years ago and left a modest donation to the hospital in his will. "We're not rich people," she said, gesturing at the crowd, "but St. Catherine saved our grandson's life when he had leukemia. We wanted to give back however we could." I told her I understood completely. She asked if I had a personal connection to the hospital. "Something like that," I said. The program started at 7:30. Dr. Morrison took the stage and thanked everyone for coming, for their continued support, for believing in St. Catherine's mission to provide world-class care regardless of a family's ability to pay. Then she started talking about the new pediatric oncology wing. "Thanks to an anonymous donor," she said, her voice getting emotional, "we're breaking ground next month on a facility that will triple our capacity to treat childhood cancers. This donor, who wishes to remain unnamed, has given us not just a building, but hope. Hope for families who thought they were out of options. Hope for children who deserve a fighting chance." The room applauded. I kept my hands folded in my lap. Helen leaned over and whispered, "Whoever that donor is, they're a saint." I just nodded. Dr. Morrison continued, "This donation represents the single largest gift in our hospital's 60-year history. $6.3 million that will save lives, fund research, and ensure that no family ever has to choose between treating their child's cancer and keeping a roof over their head." The applause got louder. People stood up. I stayed seated. Then Dr. Morrison did something I wasn't expecting. She asked 3 families to come up on stage. 3 families whose children were currently in treatment at St. Catherine's, whose care was being funded by my donation. The first family was the Johnsons, parents of a 7-year-old named Sophie with acute lymphoblastic leukemia. Mrs. Johnson spoke into the microphone, her voice shaking. "6 months ago, we got Sophie's diagnosis the same week my husband lost his job. We didn't know how we were going to pay for treatment. We were looking at losing our house, going bankrupt, and we still wouldn't have had enough. Then St. Catherine's told us about a new fund that would cover everything. Everything. Sophie's chemo, her hospital stays, her medications. Because of that, my daughter is responding to treatment. Her latest scans are clear. She's going to live because someone we'll never meet decided our daughter's life was worth saving." The room was silent except for the sound of Mrs. Johnson crying. Mr. Johnson put his arm around his wife and took the microphone. "We don't know who you are," he said, looking out at the audience, "but if you're here tonight, please know that you gave us our daughter back. You gave us our future. We'll never be able to thank you enough." They left the stage. Helen was crying next to me, dabbing her eyes with a napkin. The second family was the Patels, parents of 5-year-old twins, both diagnosed with neuroblastoma within weeks of each other. "The odds of that happening are astronomical," Dr. Patel said, "and so was the cost of treating both children simultaneously.
We're both doctors ourselves, but even with insurance, we were looking at hundreds of thousands in out-of-pocket costs. We were preparing to sell everything we owned. Then this miracle happened. Both our boys are in remission now, both of them, because someone gave them a chance. The third family was a single mother named Christina with a 9-year-old son, Michael, who had a rare form of bone cancer. "I work 2 jobs," Christina said into the microphone. "I'm a waitress and I clean houses. I have no insurance. When Michael got sick, I thought I was going to watch my son die because I couldn't afford to save him." She broke down completely. Several people in the audience were openly crying now. I sat perfectly still, staring at the stage, at this woman who worked 2 jobs and thought she'd have to watch her son die. Christina composed herself enough to continue. "Whoever gave this money, you didn't just save Michael's life. You saved mine, because I wouldn't have survived losing him. You gave me a reason to keep going. You gave both of us a future." She held up a photo of a smiling boy with no hair, giving a thumbs up from a hospital bed. "This is my son today, cancer-free, because of you." The applause was deafening. People were standing, crying, hugging each other. Helen grabbed my hand and squeezed it. I couldn't speak. I just sat there thinking about Derek at a car dealership looking at Porsches while Sophie Johnson was fighting for her life. Derek posting about manifesting a lakefront property while the Patel twins were going through chemotherapy. Derek calling me a burden while Christina was working 2 jobs and praying for a miracle she couldn't afford. Dr. Morrison returned to the microphone. "Our anonymous donor has asked not to be recognized publicly, and we're respecting that wish. But I want everyone in this room to understand what this gift represents. It's not just money. It's values. It's a belief that some things matter more than personal wealth. It's a statement that children's lives are worth more than luxury cars and vacation homes and all the things we tell ourselves we need." This donor looked at their life's work and asked, "What's the most good I can do?" And then they did it. The program continued with more speeches, a silent auction, an appeal for additional donations. I barely heard any of it. I kept thinking about those 3 families, about Sophie and the twins and Michael, about 44 other families I hadn't met who were getting the same miracle. During dinner, Helen asked me what I did before I retired. I worked in manufacturing, operations management, nothing fancy. She smiled. "You know what I learned in 30 years of nursing? The people with the fanciest titles are rarely the ones who make the biggest difference. It's the quiet ones, the ones who show up, do their work, and don't need credit. Those are the people who change the world." I thought about that, about being the quiet one, about 45 years of showing up to a manufacturing plant, managing operations, investing carefully, living below my means, building something without ever needing anyone to know about it. After dinner, Dr. Morrison found me near the silent auction tables. "Mr. Carter, I'm so glad you came." She shook my hand warmly. "Was the program okay? I know we put some families on stage. I hope that wasn't too emotional." "It was perfect," I said. She smiled. "Those families wanted to thank you. They don't know who you are, but they wanted you to know what you did for them." I know what I did. I looked around the ballroom at all these people in expensive clothes, making small donations and feeling good about themselves. And I realized something. I made a bigger difference with my one donation than most of these people will make in their entire lives. Dr. Morrison nodded. "You absolutely did. And the beautiful thing is, your gift keeps giving. The endowment will fund research for decades. Children who haven't even been born yet will benefit from what you did. That's legacy, Mr. Carter. That's immortality." I drove home that night thinking about legacy and immortality and what it means to matter. Derek thought legacy was a Porsche and a boat and a lakefront house. He thought mattering meant people knowing you were rich. But those 3 families on that stage, they'll never know my name, and I'll never forget theirs. Sophie Johnson gets to grow up. The Patel twins get to go to school together. Michael gets to have a mother who doesn't have to work 2 jobs while watching him die. That's legacy. That's what mattering actually means. When I got home, I found an envelope slipped under my door. No return address. Inside was a handwritten note on Star Wars stationery, the kind a kid would use. Dear Mr. Anonymous Donor, my name is Sophie, and I'm 7 years old. My mom said you paid for my cancer treatment. I don't really understand money, but my mom cried happy tears when she told me. I just wanted to say thank you for helping me get better. I drew you.
3 months passed before I heard from Derek again. Not a call, not a text, just silence that stretched from summer into fall. I settled into a new routine, volunteering twice a week at St. Catherine's, reading to children in the oncology ward, playing chess with teenagers who were bored between treatments. The staff knew who I was by then, the anonymous donor who wasn't really anonymous anymore, at least not to them. But they never made a fuss. They just let me be useful. One Tuesday morning in late September, I was in the hospital cafeteria getting coffee when my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. Hello? Mr. Carter? This is Amanda. Derek's girlfriend. Former girlfriend, I should say. I set down my coffee. Amanda? I'm calling because I thought you should know something. Derek been telling people a very different version of what happened between you two. He's saying you're senile, that you were manipulated by hospital administrators into giving away your estate, that he's consulting with lawyers about getting you declared incompetent. I wasn't surprised. Go on. He's also been reaching out to your neighbors, your friends, anyone who might testify that you're not capable of managing your own affairs. Mrs. Chen next door, that man Phyllis who checks on you sometimes, he's building a case. Why are you telling me this? Because I broke up with Derek 2 weeks ago, and I've spent the time since then realizing what kind of person I was dating. He's not trying to protect you, Mr. Carter. He's trying to steal back money he never earned because he can't accept that his actions had consequences. I appreciate the warning. There's something else. Derek applied for a $75,000 personal loan last week. He told the bank he's expecting a large inheritance settlement soon. He's already spending money he thinks he's going to win in court. Amanda paused. Mr. Carter, I don't know you very well, but I know you're not senile. Anyone who could build what you built and then give it away to save children's lives isn't incompetent. They're remarkable. I hope you have a good lawyer. I do. Thank you for calling, Amanda. One more thing. Derek showed me a spreadsheet he made. It listed everything he thought he was owed. The house value, your savings, projected investment returns over the next 10 years. He had it calculated down to the dollar. $6.3 million. He's been counting that money since before you even died. I know. That's why I gave it away. After we hung up, I called Jonathan Reeves. He answered on the second ring. Vincent, I was about to call you. Derek's attorney filed a petition this morning. They're seeking a competency evaluation and requesting the trust transfer be reversed on grounds of undue influence and diminished capacity. Jonathan's voice was calm, unbothered. How do you want to proceed? I want to fight it. And I want Derek to understand exactly what he's fighting for. We have a hearing scheduled for November 15th. I'll need you there, along with your medical records, the video of the signing, and anyone who can testify to your mental state. Can you get character witnesses? I can get 47. Jonathan was quiet for a moment. The families? Every single one. If Derek wants to argue that I was incompetent when I gave that money away, I want those families in the courtroom to explain what my incompetence paid for. Jonathan laughed, actually laughed. Vincent, you're going to make your son wish he never filed this petition. That's the idea. The hearing was held in probate court on a cold November morning. I arrived early, wearing the same navy suit from the gala. Jonathan met me in the hallway with a folder 3 inches thick.
Derek's legal team has 8 depositions from people claiming you're forgetful, confused, easily influenced. All of them are people Derek coached. None of them have spent meaningful time with you in the past 5 years. How many people do we have? Jonathan smiled. Counting the families? 52. Plus 3 doctors, 2 financial advisors, the hospital CEO, and a video recording of you discussing complex investment strategies 2 days before you signed the trust documents. We walked into the courtroom. Derek was already seated at the plaintiff's table with his attorney, a sharp-looking woman in an expensive suit who was probably costing him $500 an hour he didn't have. Derek looked older than I remembered, tired, like the past 3 months had worn him down. He didn't make eye contact when I entered. The judge, a woman in her 60s named Harriet Chen, took the bench at exactly 9 o'clock. She reviewed the petition quickly, then looked at Derek's attorney. Counselor, you're alleging that Mr. Vincent Carter was not mentally competent when he transferred his estate to St. Catherine's Children's Hospital Foundation. What's your evidence? Derek's attorney stood. Your Honor, we have testimony from multiple witnesses who have observed Mr. Carter exhibiting signs of memory loss, confusion, and impaired judgment. We believe he was unduly influenced by hospital representatives who took advantage of an elderly man's cognitive decline to secure a substantial donation. Judge Chen looked at me. Mr. Carter, how old are you? 72, Your Honor. And you understand why we're here today? Yes. My son believes I was incompetent when I donated my estate to a children's hospital. He's asking the court to reverse that donation so he can inherit the money instead. Judge Chen's expression didn't change, but I saw something flicker in her eyes. Your Honor, Derek's attorney interjected, with respect, that's an oversimplification. My client is concerned about his father's welfare and wants to ensure he wasn't exploited. Jonathan stood up. Your Honor, may I present evidence? For the next 2 hours, Jonathan systematically destroyed Derek's case. He played the video of me discussing portfolio diversification strategies with my financial advisor. He presented cognitive assessments from 3 different doctors, all showing normal function for my age. He called Dr. Morrison to testify about the extensive conversations we'd had about how the donation would be structured and used. Then he called the families. One by one, they took the stand. Mrs. Johnson testified about meeting me at the gala, about how clearly I'd spoken about wanting to help families like hers. Mr. Patel described a conversation we'd had in the hospital cafeteria about cancer research funding. Christina, the single mother, told the judge about a letter I'd written to her son Michael, explaining in detail why I'd chosen to donate to St. Catherine's. The letter was articulate, thoughtful, and clearly written by someone in full command of their faculties. By the time the 10th family finished, Derek's attorney was visibly uncomfortable. Judge Chen looked at Derek. Mr. Carter, your father, does he seem incompetent to you right now? Derek stood up slowly. Your Honor, I just want what's fair. What I was supposed to inherit. Judge Chen leaned forward. Let me make sure I understand. Your father spent 45 years building a substantial estate through careful work and investment. He then chose to donate that estate to save children's lives, and you're asking this court to reverse that donation because you believe you're entitled to money you never earned? It's my inheritance. It was your expectation. There's a difference. Judge Chen looked at the documents in front of her. Mr. Carter, Derek, I've reviewed all the evidence presented today. Your father's cognitive assessments are excellent. The video evidence shows clear understanding of complex financial matters. Multiple witnesses, including families whose children's lives were saved by his donation, have testified to his mental clarity. The only evidence of incompetence comes from people who haven't spent meaningful time with your father in years and who, frankly, appear to be coached on what to say. She closed the folder. Petition denied. The trust transfer stands. Derek's attorney started to object. Your Honor, we respectfully request... Judge Chen cut her off. Counselor, I'm not going to waste this court's time reversing a charitable donation made by a mentally competent adult who clearly understood what he was doing and why he did it. Your client's sense of entitlement is not grounds for legal intervention. She looked at Derek directly. "Mr. Carter, your father had every right to do whatever he wanted with his own money. The fact that you expected to inherit it doesn't create a legal obligation for him to give it to you. And frankly, based on the evidence I've seen today, your father made an excellent decision. This donation will save lives. That matters more than your desire for a comfortable lifestyle funded by someone else's life's work." Case dismissed. The gavel came down. Derek sat frozen in his chair. His attorney gathered her papers and left without saying goodbye, probably realizing she'd never get paid. Jonathan shook my hand. "Well done, Vincent." The families clustered around me in the hallway, thanking me, hugging me, some of them crying. Derek walked past all of it without looking at anyone. I watched him push through the courthouse doors into the November cold and disappear. 2 weeks later, I was reading to Sophie Johnson in her hospital room when a nurse told me I had a visitor in the family lounge. I found Derek sitting by the window, staring out at the parking lot. He looked thin, defeated, like someone who'd lost more than a court case. I sat down across from him. We were quiet for a long time. Finally, he spoke. "I saw her." "Saw who?" "Sophie. The little girls whose room you just came from. I've been sitting here for an hour watching kids come and go from the oncology wing. Kids who look like they should be playing soccer or going to school, and instead they're fighting for their lives." Derek's voice cracked.
Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.